The Silva family was the picture of resilience and joy. Marcos, the father, a civil engineer in his early 40s, was the family's anchor, always with a practical solution to every problem and a welcoming smile. Sophia, the mother, a history teacher the same age, was the soul of the house, with her passion for storytelling and her inexhaustible ability to see the good in everything. Together, they formed a dynamic duo, creating a home full of love and learning for their 3 children. Luana, the eldest, at 16, was a vibrant teenager full of dreams. With her curly hair that seemed to dance in the wind and a natural talent for photography, she saw the world through a lens, seeking to capture the beauty in every detail. Pedro, the middle child, at 12, was a curious and adventurous boy. His mind teemed with questions about the universe, and his energy was contagious, always ready to explore and discover something new. And the youngest, Nina, just 5 years old, was the personification of sweetness and innocence. With her large, curious eyes and a laugh that lit up any room, that it was the beginning of summer vacation, and anticipation hung in the air like a sweet perfume. The Silva family was about to embark on a long-planned adventure, a road trip from Sao Paulo to Chapada Diamantina, in Bahia. It wasn't just a leisurely trip. It was a pilgrimage to Sophia's roots, an opportunity to reconnect with extended family and show her children the richness of their cultural heritage. The final destination was the small town of Lencois, where Sophia's grandmother, Dona Tsida, was waiting for them with open arms and a lavish table. The car, an old but reliable Chevrolet Spin, was crammed with suitcases, snacks, games, and Luana's photography equipment. Marcos had given the vehicle a thorough inspection, ensuring everything was in working order for the long journey. Sophia had prepared a playlist with songs ranging from MPB classics to buy-in rhythms, promising to keep their spirits high during the hours on the road. Luana was excited to capture every landscape, every face, every moment. Pedro had packed his logbook and a detailed map, ready to mark every stop and every discovery. And Nina, well, Nina was happy to be with her family, and that was all that mattered on that sunny December morning. The sun was already shining brightly when the Silvas finally set off. The Spin's engine purred softly, and the road stretched out ahead, inviting them to adventure. "Ready for Chapada, family?" Marcos asked, looking back in the rearview mirror with a wide smile. "Ready!" the 3 children replied in unison, Nina's voice standing out with infectious enthusiasm. The journey had begun, and with it, the promise of unforgettable memories. The first few days of the trip were a delight. The landscape gradually changed, from skyscrapers to green fields, and with each kilometer traveled, the feeling of freedom increased. Sophia told fascinating stories about Brazil's geological formation and local legends, while Marcos pointed out historical landmarks and curiosities along the road. Luana recorded everything with her camera, Pedro jotted notes in his diary, and Nina slept peacefully in the back seat, rocked by the car's motion. On the 3rd day, as they crossed the interior of Minas Gerais, the strong midday sun beaten the asphalt. The family stopped in a small village for lunch and to stretch their legs. The simple restaurant, with delicious home-cooked food, was a find. After the meal, refreshed, they returned to the car. Marco started the engine, but it sputtered. He tried again, and again without success. A tense silence filled the Spin. "What's wrong, Dad?" Pedro asked, curiosity replacing joy. Marcos Trieto remained calm, but concern was visible on his face. "It seems we have a problem, son. The car won't start." Sophia, realizing the gravity of the situation, Trieto reassured the children. "Don't worry, everyone. Daddy will fix it. It's just a minor setback." Marcos got out of the car and opened the hood. The engine was hot, and a strange smell hung in the air. He tried to identify the problem, but his mechanical knowledge was limited. The village was small, and the nearest repair shop was dozens of kilometers away. Cell phone reception was weak, almost non-existent. The family was isolated. Luana, sensing the tension, suggested, "Dad, I saw a tire shop at the entrance to town. Maybe they can help, or at least point us in the right direction." Marcos nodded, grateful for his daughter's initiative. "Good idea, Luana." Sophia, Can you stay with the children here while I take a look? Sophia agreed, and Marcos set off on foot under the blazing sun. The wait was long and agonizing. Nina began to cry, hot and thirsty. Pedro tried to distract her with games, but her nervousness was palpable. Luana, for her part, tried to capture the beauty of the village with her camera, but her thoughts were elsewhere, focused on the safety of her family. After almost an hour, Marcos returned, accompanied by an elderly man with greased hands and a welcoming smile. It was Zé, the owner of the tire shop. Problem with the fuel pump, my friend, Zé said, examining the engine. But don't worry, I have a part here that might work. It'll take a while, but we'll fix it. Relief washed over the family. Mr. Zé worked tirelessly under the sun, while the children watched curiously. Sophia offered water and snacks, and soon a lively conversation emerged. Mr. Zé told stories of the village, and Sophia shared her own travel experiences. The initial difficulty turned into an opportunity for connection and learning. Hours later, the spin's engine purred again, stronger than ever. Marcos thanked Mr. Zé, who refused any payment beyond a hug and the promise that the family would return to visit him. With the car repaired and their spirits renewed, the Silvas continued their journey, more united and resilient than before. The first obstacle had been overcome, but the road still held many surprises. With the car scare behind them, the Silva family hit the road again with a new sense of purpose. The Minas Gerais landscape gave way to the vast fields and mountains of Bahia, and with each kilometer, the anticipation of seeing Donatcida again grew. Sophia took the opportunity to teach her children about the history of colonial Brazil and the importance of Afro-Brazilian culture in the country's formation, while Luana captured the beauty of the Baroque churches and colorful houses that dotted the road. However, the journey was far from smooth. As they approached a small town, a road sign indicated a mandatory detour due to construction on the main highway. Marcos, trusting his GPS, followed the instructions. The secondary road, initially paved, soon turned into a dirt road, full of potholes and poorly marked. The sun was beginning to set, and the dust kicked up by the car made it difficult to see. "Dad, are you sure we're on the right path?" Pedro asked, his voice a little apprehensive. Luana, who was trying to take pictures of the sunset, noticed that the landscape was becoming increasingly desolate. Sophia tried to calm the children, but she herself felt butterflies in her stomach. The GPS, which had previously been a reliable guide, began to fail, indicating confusing routes and eventually losing signal completely. Marcos stopped the car. The darkness of the night began to swallow the landscape, and the silence was broken only by the cricket and the wind. "We've lost signal," he announced, his voice thick with frustration, "and there are no signs indicating the way back or forward." Nina, sensing the tension in the air, began to whimper. "I'm scared, Mommy." Sophia hugged her daughter while Marcos tried to think of a solution. He knew they couldn't spend the night there, in the middle of nowhere. Luana, with her sharp vision, pointed to a faint light on the horizon. "Dad, I think there's a house over there." Marcos hesitated for a moment, but the alternative of standing still was worse. "Let's try." Slowly and carefully, with the help of their headlights, they headed toward the light. The dirt road was treacherous, and the spin rocked with every pothole. Finally, they reached a small farm. A man with white hair and sun-beaten skin, accompanied by a stray dog, appeared at the door. It was Seu João, the farm's owner. Marcos explained the situation, and Seu João, with typical country hospitality, invited them inside. "You can spend the night here, my friends. The road is dangerous at night, and the detour is long. I'll show you the way tomorrow morning." The Silva family felt immense relief. Seu João's simple home was a haven of peace and warmth. They shared a modest but delicious meal and listened to Seu João's stories about country life. The next morning, João, mounted on his horse, guided Marcos along a shortcut that cut through the farm and took them back to the main highway, past the section under construction. Before leaving, the Silva family thanked João for his generosity and hospitality. Luana took a photo of him with his dog, promising to send a copy. Pedro wrote down their experience in his journal, and Nina gave João a tight hug. The unexpected detour, which seemed like a major problem, turned into an enriching experience, showing them the kindness and solidarity of people. The Silva family continued their journey, hearts full of gratitude and the certainty that, together, they could overcome any challenge the road presented. After SCU João's hospitality, the Silva family felt that luck was once again on their side. The main road was smooth, and the miles seemed to fly by. With each sign indicating the proximity of Chapada Diamantina, Sofia and the children's excitement grew. Marcos, for his part, felt a quiet relief, grateful for each obstacle overcome. However, the journey still held an unexpected test in the city of Vitória da Conquista, a strategic stopover to refuel and spend the night before continuing into Lençóis. The big city, with its heavy traffic and bustling streets, was a stark contrast to the tranquility of the countryside. Marcos found a comfortable hotel, and the family decided to enjoy the evening with dinner at a bustling restaurant and sample the local cuisine. The restaurant was vibrant, full of color and sound. Luana was enchanted by the colonial architecture and the lively people, constantly taking photos. Pedro, always curious, watched the musicians playing live foro, while Nina, sitting on Sofia's lap, clapped along to the music. After dinner, while Marcos paid the bill, Sofia took the children to the sidewalk, waiting for her father. It was then that the unthinkable happened. Amidst the passing crowd, a group of young street artists began a lively performance, attracting everyone's attention. Nina, fascinated by the colors and movements, let go of Sofia's hand for a moment and ran toward the artists. Sofia, distracted for a second by Luana, who was showing a photo she had just taken, only noticed her daughter's absence when the performance ended and the crowd began to disperse. "Nina? Nina!" Sofia called, panic rising in her throat. Luana and Pedro joined their mother, their eyes wide with fear. Marcos, leaving the restaurant, saw the scene and felt his heart freeze. The big city, which had once seemed like a refuge, now transformed into a threatening maze. They searched everywhere, calling Nina's name, but the girl had disappeared into the crowd. Marcos, his voice firm despite his desperation, took the lead. "Sofia, you and Luana search the nearby shops. Pedro, stay with me. Let's go to the police station." The family split up, each hoping to find little Nina. The hours dragged by, and the anguish grew with each passing minute. Sofia and Luana asked every passerby, showing a photo of Nina, but no one had seen her. Pedro and Marcos, at the police station, filled out the police report, feeling helpless. Meanwhile, Nina, scared and lost, had been taken in by an elderly woman, Dona Eunice, who sold flowers in a nearby square. Dona Eunice, realizing the girl was alone, took her to her small stall, offering her a sweet and a glass of water. Nina, through sobs, managed to say her name and that she was traveling with her family. Dona Eunice, a wise woman with life experience, knew the family would be desperate. She asked a young man who worked in the square to go to the nearest police station and report the girl. Coincidentally, it was the same police station where Marcos and Pedro were. The news came as a ray of hope. Marcos and Pedro ran to the square, and the scene of their reunion was moving. Sofia and Luana, who had been alerted by a police officer, arrived soon after. Nina ran into her mother's arms, crying with relief. The family hugged, tears streaming, the joy indescribable. Dona Eunice, with a gentle smile, watched the scene, happy to have helped. That night, back at the hotel, the Silva family gathered, closer than ever. The scare had been immense, but the experience reinforced the importance of always being together and taking care of each other. Marcos and Sofia thanked Dona Eunice with a gift and a promise to visit her when they returned. The incident in the big city, though terrifying, served to strengthen family bonds and reaffirm that, no matter the challenge, they would always have each other. With their experience in Vitória da Conquista still fresh in their memories, the Silva family continued their journey to Chapada Diamantina, with extra caution and an even greater appreciation for each other's presence. The landscape began to change drastically, with the imposing mountains and lush vegetation announcing their arrival at a natural paradise. The excitement was palpable, and even Nina, still recovering from her shock, was excited by the promise of waterfalls and trails. However, the weather in the Chapata region is known for its unpredictability. As they climbed a steep mountain, the sky, once blue and sunny, quickly darkened. Heavy clouds formed within minutes, and a strong wind began to blow. Marcos, an experienced traveler, noticed the signs of an impending storm. "We need to find a safe place to stop," he said, his voice a little strained. "This mountain is no place to experience heavy rain." He'd barely finished speaking when the first drops began to fall, quickly turning into a torrential downpour. The windshield wipers could barely keep up with the falling water, and visibility dropped dramatically. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by thunder that shook the car. The already challenging dirt road turned into a slippery mud puddle. Marcos tried to maintain control of the spin, but the car began to spin. "Dad, be careful," Luana shouted, while Pedro clung to the seat. Nina, frightened, cried in Sofia's arms. Marcos managed, with great difficulty, to pull the car over into a small clearing at the side of the road, sheltered by some sturdy trees. "We can't go on like this," he said, turning off the engine. "It's too dangerous. We'll have to wait out the rain." The family was trapped in the middle of the storm, in an unfamiliar place. The sound of the rain on the car roof was deafening, and the wind shook the trees fiercely. The cold began to set in, and concern about the approaching night grew. Sofia, with her usual calm, tried to calm the children. "Let's make a makeshift camp in here," she suggested, pulling blankets and snacks from her backpack. Luana, despite her fear, saw an opportunity. "Mom, can I try to take some pictures? The lighting is incredible." Sofia nodded, knowing that photography was Luana's way of dealing with stress. Pedro, in turn, took out his journal and began writing about the adventure, transforming fear into a narrative. Nina, nestled between her parents, soon calmed down, lulled by the stories Sofia told about nature's resilience. Marcos, watching the family, felt a mixture of worry and pride. They were facing yet another challenge, but they were doing it together, transforming an adverse situation into a unique experience. He checked the car, making sure it was safe, and then joined the family, sharing snacks and telling Jokesto keep their spirits up. The storm raged all night, but the Silva family managed to weather it, snuggled in the spin. At dawn, the sky was clear, and the sun shone, revealing a washed and vibrant landscape. The road, though still a little muddy, was passable. Marcos started the car, and the car, faithfully, responded without a hitch. They continued on their way, with the smell of wet earth and the feeling of a new beginning. The storm, which could have been a disaster, became another story to tell, further proof of the Silva family's strength and unity. Lencois was getting closer, and the promise of a warm reunion with Donatcita was the reward for all the challenges overcome. After the storm, the road opened up, revealing the untamed beauty of Chapata Diamantina. The majestic mountains, deep valleys, and lush vegetation painted a breathtaking picture. The Silva family, invigorated by the morning sun and by overcoming yet another challenge, felt the energy of Bahia pulsing through their veins. Luana didn't stop taking photos. Pedro filled the last pages of his diary with vivid descriptions, and Nina sang children's songs, excited about their destination's proximity. Finally, after days of travel, unexpected encounters, and unforgettable moments, the welcome Sigto Lencois came into view. A collective sigh of relief and joy filled the car. The small town, with its cobblestone streets and colonial mansions, seemed like an invitation to peace and celebration. Marcos drove through the narrow streets, following directions from Sofia, who knew every corner of this place that was part of her history. They arrived at Donatcita's house, a charming old building with a flower-filled garden and an inviting porch. The door was open, and the smell of home-cooked food wafted through the air. Donatcita, a woman in her 80s with a smile that lit up her face and a hug that warmed the soul, was waiting at the door. Her eyes shone as she saw the family approach. The reunion was a whirlwind of emotions. Sophia ran into her grandmother's arms, tears streaming down her face. Marcos, Luana, Pedro, and Nina joined in the embrace, forming a tangle of love and longing. Donatcita, with her soft, caring voice, welcomed everyone, asking about the trip and life in Sao Paulo. Nina, who had grown attached to her great-grandmother through Sophia's stories, ran into her lap, finally feeling a thome. The table was set with the delights of Bayan cuisine: acarage, maquica, vatapa, and a cassava cake that was Donatcita's specialty. The family sat, sharing laughter, stories, and the joy of being together. Marcos told them about the unexpected setbacks of the trip, the broken-down car, the unexpected detour, and the scare with Nina. Donatcita listened attentively, nodding and offering words of wisdom and comfort. "Life is like that, my children," she said with a sparkle in her eyes, full of winding paths and surprises. "But the important thing is how we face each one. And you, my family, faced everything with courage and unity. That's what truly matters." Her words resonated in everyone's hearts, confirming what they had already learned in the road. The days that followed were pure celebration. The family explored the beauty of the Chapada Diamantina, visiting crystal-clear waterfalls, mysterious caves, and challenging trails. Luana recorded every moment with her camera, creating a memory album that would be treasured forever. Pedro, with his diary full of adventures, felt like a true explorer. And Nina, free and happy, ran through the fields, her laughter flowing and contagious. The Silva's trip was not just a geographical journey. It was a journey of self-discovery, of strengthening bonds, and of reaffirming values. They learned that unexpected events are part of life, but that unity, resilience, and love are the most powerful tools to overcome them. They arrived in Lencois tired, but with hearts overflowing with gratitude and the certainty that, no matter what, they would always have each other. Bahia embraced them, and the Silva family, stronger and more united than ever, was ready to enjoy every moment of that paradise. The days in Lencois unfolded in a tapestry of colors, sounds, and sensations. Donatcita's house was a safe haven, a refuge of affection and tradition. Every morning, the smell of fresh coffee and homemade cheese bread woke the family, inviting them to another day of exploration. Donatcita, with her ancestral wisdom, guided them through the secrets of the Chapada, not just the tourist attractions, but the stories and legends that permeated every rock, every waterfall. Luana, with her camera, was in her element. She captured the golden light of dawn over the mountains, the force of the waters of the Fumica waterfall, the serenity of Poco Azul, and the intrinsic beauty of the local people. Her photos were not just visual records. They were narratives, each image telling a part of the family's journey and the soul of the Chapada. Pedro, in turn, became a little explorer. With a map in hand and his journal always nearby, he cataloged plant species, drew rock formations, and noted the coordinates of each place he visited. The Chapada was his open air laboratory, and he absorbed every piece of information with the eagerness of a scientist. Nina, the youngest, found in Donatcita an accomplice in her games and discoveries. Together, they picked flowers in the garden, listened to the birds, and learned about the medicinal herbs their great-grandmother cultivated. Nina's innocence and Donatcita's wisdom formed a charming duo, showing everyone the beauty of the connection between generations. Sophia, watching her children flourish in that environment, felt her heart overflow with gratitude. She spent hours talking with Donatcita, recalling childhood memories and delving deeper into the history of her family and the region. Marcos, for his part, found in the tranquility of the Chapada a counterpoint to the hustle and bustle of his professional life. He dedicated himself to long walks, enjoying nature and the company of his family, feeling more connected than ever. One day, while hiking to Cachoeira do Buracao, one of the most challenging spots in the Chapada, the family faced a new kind of obstacle. The trail was long and required good physical fitness. Pedro, always full of energy, shot ahead, eager to reach their destination. Luana followed closely, while Marcos and Sophia trailed behind, with Nina, who was already beginning to feel tired. Halfway along, Pedro, in his excitement, slipped on a wet rock and sprained his ankle. The pain was immediate and he fell, crying. Luana, upon seeing him, ran to help him. Marcos and Sofia arrived soon after, their hearts aching at the sight of their son injured. The situation was delicate. They were in the middle of the trail, far from any medical help, and Pedro couldn't walk. Marcos, with his usual calm, assessed the situation. "We can't leave him here. Will Javito carry him?" Sofia, without hesitation, began improvising a splint with branches and a handkerchief, while Luana offered her brother water and words of comfort. Nina, despite her small size, tried to help, holding Pedro's hand and singing a song to distract him. Marcos, with Sofia's help, managed to carry Pedro on his back. The walk back was arduous, each step a battle against fatigue and worry. Luana led the way, leading the way, and Sofia, with Nina in her arms, encouraged Marcos at every turn. The family's unity was the driving force. They took turns supporting Pedro, ensuring that he was as comfortable as possible. They arrived at Donatcita's house exhausted but victorious. Donatcita, with her knowledge of folk medicine, prepared herbal compresses for Pedro's ankle and comforted him with her stories. The incident, though painful, reinforced the importance of teamwork and solidarity. Pedro, with his ankle bandaged, learned a valuable lesson about respecting boundaries and waiting for others. Luana felt more protective of her brother, and Nina, more affectionate. That night, while Pedro rested, the family gathered on the porch under a starry sky. The Chapada Diamantina, with its wild beauty and challenges, had become a setting for growth and strengthening family bonds. They knew the journey was coming to an end, but the memories and lessons learned would last forever. Bahia, with its magic and mysteries, had transformed them, making them an even more united and resilient family. The days in Chapada Diamantina passed, each bringing new adventures and discoveries. Pedro recovered quickly from his sprained ankle and was soon back on the trails, albeit with a little more caution. The Silva family immersed themselves in the local culture, participating in capoeira circles, trying new flavors, and listening to the stories of the locals, who seemed to have a deep connection with the land. Luckily for the family, the last week of their stay coincided with the traditional Lencois festival, an event celebrating the region's music, art, and culture. The city streets were filled with colors, sounds, and people from all over. Local artists and artists from other regions of Brazil performed on stages set up in the squares, and the energy was contagious. Luana was ecstatic, capturing every smile, every dance, every detail of that cultural spectacle. Pedro, fascinated, tried to learn a few foro steps, while Nina, on Marcos's lap, clapped and laughed along to the music. Sofia, as a history teacher, took the opportunity to deepen her children's understanding of the richness of Afro-Brazilian culture, present in each artistic manifestation of the festival. She took them to talk with artisans, musicians, and dancers, explaining the origin and meaning of each tradition. Marcos, in turn, was enchanted by the organization of the event and the way the community came together to celebrate its identity. However, amid the joy of the festival, a small incident presented a new challenge. During a percussion performance, Luana's camera, which was hanging around her neck, slipped and fell to the floor, breaking the lens. Luana's heart sank. The camera was her treasure, her tool for expressing her worldview. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she felt devastated. Marcos and Sofia tried to console her, but they knew the loss was significant. Pedro and Nina, seeing their sister's sadness, were also downcast. Donatcita, sensing the situation, approached with her usual calm. "Don't worry, my granddaughter. The best photos aren't the ones we take with the camera, but the ones we keep in our hearts." She then suggested, "There's a craftsman here in Lencois who's very good at repairs. Maybe he can help." The next day, Marcos and Luana went to find the craftsman, a man named Master Dinho, known for his skill in repairing delicate objects. Master Dinho examined the camera carefully and, after a few minutes, said, "The lens is damaged, but I can get a replacement. It'll take a day to get here from Salvador, but I can fix it." Luana felt a glimmer of hope. Marcos, relieved, thanked Master Dinho and arranged to pick up the camera the next day. While waiting for the repair, Luana was encouraged by Sophia to try a new way of recording her memories: drawing. With a notebook and colored pencils, she began sketching scenes from the festival, people's faces, and the Chapata landscapes. To her surprise, she discovered a new talent and a new passion. The photos she couldn't take with a camera, she now created with her own hands, adding an even more personal and artistic layer to her memories. On the day of her departure, Luana's camera was repaired, and she held it with renewed affection. But the experience of drawing had opened her eyes to other forms of art, and she vowed to continue exploring this new passion. The Silva family said goodbye to Dona Tsida with a tight hug and the promise of a soon return. Her grandmother, with tears in her eyes, blessed everyone, asking them to take the lessons of Chapata with them. The journey back was different. There wasn't the same anxiety as the departure, but rather a sense of fulfillment and gratitude. The children, more mature and aware, saw the landscape with different eyes. The trip had been more than just a stroll. It was a journey of growth, overcoming, and strengthening family bonds. They returned home with their luggage full of memories, lessons, and the certainty that, together, they were capably facing any challenge life presented them. The Silva's journey, full of unforeseen events and discoveries, had reached its happy ending, but the stories and memories would remain alive forever. The return trip from Lencois to Sao Paulo was not a mere repetition of the outward journey. It was a journey of reflection, of assimilating past experiences, and of cementing the bonds that had been tested and strengthened. The Chevrolet Spin, now a veteran of the road, seemed to carry not only the Silva family but also a treasure trove of memories and lessons learned. Marcos, at the wheel, watched the passing landscape, but his mind was on his conversations with Dona Tsida, the improvised solutions to the car's problems, and the way his family had united in the face of adversity. He realized that true strength lay not in avoiding problems, but in facing them together. The trip had taught him to be more flexible, to trust his intuition more, and to cherish every moment with his wife and children. The pragmatic engineer had discovered the beauty of improvisation and the richness of human connections. Sophia, sitting next to Marcos, leafed through a small notebook Dona Tsida had given her, filled with old recipes and folk proverbs. She was immensely proud of her family. The history teacher had seen history unfold before her eyes, not in books, but in real life, through the resilience of her people and the beauty of their culture. She had reconnected with her roots in a way she never imagined, and Bahia, more than a destination, had become an even deeper part of her identity. The stories she would tell in class would now have a different flavor, more authentic, more vivid. Luana, in the back seat, was no longer just taking photos. She was drawing. Her sketchbook was full of faces, landscapes, and moments captured not by the lens, but by the sensitivity of her hands. The experience with the broken camera and the discovery of drawing had opened up a new universe of artistic possibilities for her. She realized that art wasn't limited to a single tool, but was an expression of the soul, capable of manifesting itself in many ways. Her initial shyness had given way to renewed confidence in her ability to create and see the world with a unique perspective. Pedro, with his logbook almost complete, was lost in thought. He had faced the fear of the unknown, the pain of a sprained ankle, and the thrill of new discoveries. The journey had transformed him from a curious boy into a young adventurer, with an insatiable thirst for knowledge and exploration. He was already planning his next adventure, imagining new trails and new mysteries to unravel. Chapata Diamantina had lit the explorer's flame in him, and he knew that flame would never go out, and Nina, little Nina, slept peacefully, nestled between her siblings. She had overcome the fear of getting lost, the shock of the storm, and the pain of an injured brother. Her innocence had been preserved, but her adaptability and her contagious joy had grown stronger. She was living proof that, even in the most difficult moments, sweetness and hope can prevail. The trip had been a great adventure for her, a real-life fairy tale, with heroes, challenges, and a happy ending. During one of the stops for gas, Marcos noticed that the front tire was slightly flat. A small puncture, probably caused by some debris on the road. It wasn't a serious problem, but it required attention. Without hesitation, he grabbed the jack and tire wrench, and with the help of Pedro, who now felt like an experienced mechanic, changed the tire. Luana recorded the moment with a quick sketch, and Nina, sitting on a stool, watched curiously. The scene, which would once have been a source of stress, was now just another small challenge to overcome, a natural part of the journey. As they approached Sao Paulo, the familiar landscape began to emerge. The skyscrapers, the heavy traffic, the hustle and bustle of the city. But the Silva family was no longer the same as when they had left. They had grown, matured, and become stronger. The trip had been a rite of passage, proof that, with unity and love, it is possible to overcome any obstacle. The memories of Chapada Diamantina, of Dona Cida, Seuz, and Dona Eunice would be kept forever in their hearts. They arrived home in the late afternoon light, tired but with renewed souls. The spin was parked in the garage, and the bags were unloaded. But the real baggage they brought wasn't in their suitcases, but in the experiences they'd lived, the lessons they'd learned, and the love that united them. The Silva's journey had ended, but the story of their unity and resilience would continue to be written with each new day, with each new challenge, with each new embrace. They were, and always would be, the Silva family, a family that knew that life's true adventure lies in living and growing together, no matter the path. Returning to routine in Sao Paulo was a gradual process, but the Silva family was no longer the same. The dust of the road had been washed away, but the marks of the journey were etched in their souls. The house, once a family refuge, now felt like a museum of memories, with photos of Luana adorning the walls, drawings of Bayan landscapes scattered across the refrigerator, and Pedro's diary, now a respectable volume, lovingly kept on his bookshelf. Marcos, back in his engineering office, found himself applying the lessons of improvisation and resilience to his projects. He realized that rigid plans weren't always the best approach, and that the ability to adapt to unexpected events was as valuable as technical precision. His meetings were now punctuated by anecdotes from the trip, which, to the surprise of his colleagues, often served as metaphors for corporate challenges. He had become a more empathetic, more human leader, and his team felt the difference. In her history classes, Sofia brought the Chapada Diamantina region into the classroom. The legends, traditions, and cultural richness of Bahia were all shared with her students, who listened fascinated to Dona Cida's stories and her family's adventures. She realized that history was not just a collection of facts and dates, but a living tapestry of human experiences, and that the best way to teach it was through personal connection. Her students, inspired, began to research their own roots, transforming the classroom into a melting pot of discoveries. Luana, for her part, had found a new purpose in her art. Photography remained her passion, but drawing had become a more intimate and personal form of expression. She began attending art classes, exploring different techniques and styles. Her photos of the Chapada Diamantina, now developed and framed, were a testament to her journey, but her drawings were the soul of her experiences. She dreamed of one day exhibiting her work, sharing with the world the beauty she had found and how art had transformed her. Pedro, the little explorer, couldn't sit still. His weekends were dedicated to exploring parks and nature reserves around Sao Paulo, always with his journal and map in hand. He had joined a Boy Scout club, where he could apply his knowledge of hiking and survival. The Chapada Diamantina had ignited in him a passion for nature and adventure, and he knew that this was only the first of many journeys. He dreamed of one day returning to Bahia, perhaps for a longer expedition, exploring the most remote corners of the Chapada, and Nina, the youngest, continued to be the light of the house. Her infectious joy and innocence were a constant reminder of the beauty of life. She told her own versions of the trip stories to her little friends, transforming the unexpected events into fairy tales with happy endings. The experience of getting lost and being found by Dona Eunice had made her more aware of the world around her, but without losing her sweetness and confidence. She was the glue that held the family together, the small seed of hope that blossomed in each of them. The Silva family, now closer and aware of their strength, established new traditions. Friday nights were dedicated to telling stories about the trip, reliving every moment, every laugh, every challenge overcome. They planned the next adventure, not with the anxiety of a destination, but with the certainty that the journey, with all its unforeseen events, was what truly mattered. The trip to Chapada Diamantina had been more than a stroll. It was a catalyst, a transformative experience that taught them that the true richness of life lies in unity, resilience, and the ability to find beauty and learning in every obstacle. The legacy of the Silva's journey wasn't just in the photos, drawings, or diaries. It was in the way they looked at each other, the way they supported each other, the way they faced the world. They were living proof that a family, united by love and courage, can overcome any storm, find a way through any detour, and transform every challenge into an opportunity for growth. And so, the Silva family's story continued, a saga of love, adventure, and resilience. The months passed, and the energy of Chapada Diamantina continued to resonate in the Silva household. The trip was not just an isolated event, but a turning point that redefined priorities and inspired new paths for each family member. Seeds planted on the road began to blossom in unexpected ways, shaping their futures and further deepening their connection. Marcos, previously an engineer focused on large urban projects, began to direct his expertise toward more sustainable and community-based solutions. Inspired by the simplicity and resilience of the communities he encountered in Bahia, he became involved in an infrastructure development project for remote villages, applying his knowledge to build bridges and sanitation systems that truly made a difference in people's lives. He discovered a satisfaction that concrete and steel could never offer, a joy in seeing the direct impact of his work on the well-being of others. His vision of success had expanded, embracing a greater purpose. Sophia, with her passion for history and culture, decided to go beyond the classroom. She began organizing lectures and workshops on Afro-Brazilian culture, inviting artists, musicians, and storytellers to share their traditions. Her goal was to create a bridge between urban communities and Brazil's cultural roots, combating prejudice and promoting respect for diversity. She became an active voice in the defense of cultural heritage, and her home became a meeting place for discussions and celebrations of Black identity. The trip had empowered her to be an agent of change, transforming her passion into activism. Luana, the photographer and now also an artist, found art a form of activism. Her photos and drawings of Chapada Diamantina were not just beautiful images. They were visual narratives that told stories of resilience, beauty, and identity. She built an impressive portfolio and began exhibiting her work in local galleries, attracting the attention of critics and the public. Her art became a vehicle for expressing her worldview, addressing themes of ancestry, nature, and the strength of Black people. She used her artistic voice to inspire and provoke reflection, showing that beauty can be found even in adversity. Pedro, the explorer, continued to nurture his passion for nature. He dedicated himself to studying biology and geography, dreaming of becoming a researcher and environmentalist. His weekend expeditions became more elaborate, and he began documenting local flora and fauna, contributing to conservation projects. The Chapada Diamantina had ignited in him a passion for environmental responsibility, and he saw himself as a guardian of nature, determined to protect ecosystems for future generations. He planned a return trip to Bahia, this time as a volunteer on a reforestation project in the Chapada. And Nina, the youngest, grew up with the vivid memory of that great adventure. Her games were filled with references to travel, and she often drew waterfalls, mountains, and smiling people. The experience of being lost and found had taught her about the importance of community and human kindness. She became a more empathetic and curious child, always ready to help and learn. Her laughter continued to be the melody of the house, a constant reminder of the joy and hope the family had found on their journey. The Silva family, at its core, had transformed. They were no longer just a family unit. They were a collective of inspired individuals, each following their own path, but always connected by the shared experience of travel. The Chapada Story Nights became a sacred ritual, a time to relive memories, celebrate achievements, and plan the next steps. They learned that life is a continuous journey, full of ups and downs, but that true richness lies in the ability to face each challenge with unity, love, and an unwavering spirit. One day, while tidying up the house, Sophia found a small wooden box that Donitsita had given them as a farewell gift. Inside was a handwritten note. "Life is like a river, my children, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent. But the important thing is to keep flowing, always moving forward, carrying with it the waters that nourish it and the stones that shape it." Donitsita's words echoed in their hearts, reaffirming the ancestral wisdom they had found in Bahia. The Silva family knew that their physical journey had ended, but their life's journey, enriched by that transformative experience, was just beginning. They were living proof that with courage, resilience, and unconditional love, it is possible to transform unexpected events into opportunities, challenges into growth, and a simple journey into. Inspired by the transformations that the trip to Chapada Diamantina had brought about in their lives, the Silva family decided to channel this energy into a project that could resonate with the lessons learned and positively impact others. Thus was born the Roots and Wings Project, an initiative that combined the passion of each family member and the desire to give back some of the generosity and wisdom they had received. Roots and Wings was a cultural and environmental exchange program for young people from underprivileged communities in Sao Paulo. The idea was to take these young people to Chapada Diamantina, providing them with an experience similar to what the Silva family had experienced. Contact with nature, immersion in the local culture, and the opportunity to develop new skills and perspectives. The project's name reflected the essence of the proposal, strengthening cultural roots and identity, while giving wings so young people could dream and soar. Marcos, with his expertise in project management and his new vision of sustainable development, took the lead in structuring the program. He sought partnerships with local NGOs, businesses, and government agencies, securing the necessary funding and logistics. His problem-solving skills, honed on the road, were instrumental in overcoming bureaucracy and initial challenges. He designed a detailed plan, from participant selection to activity scheduling, always with a keen eye for safety and social impact. Sophia, with her knowledge of history and storytelling skills, developed the exchange's cultural curriculum. She planned capoeira workshops, conversation circles with folk culture masters, visits to quilombos and traditional communities, and classes on the flora and fauna of the Chapada. Her goal was for the young people to not only see the natural beauty but also understand its historical richness and the importance of environmental and cultural preservation. She wanted them to feel the same connection to their roots that she had rediscovered. Luana, now a budding artist, was responsible for the visual documentation of the project. She would teach the young people how to use photography and drawing as tools of expression and record-keeping. Her idea was for each participant to create their own visual log, capturing their experiences and perceptions. She believed that art could be a powerful means of self-discovery and empowerment, and wanted to share this discovery with the young people. Furthermore, she planned an exhibition of the works created by the participants, highlighting their talents and stories. Pedro, the young explorer, became the group's naturalist guide. He shared his knowledge of trails, plant and animal identification, and the importance of conservation. His contagious energy and enthusiasm for nature inspired the young Pioplito connect with the environment on a deeper level. He taught them how to read maps, set up camp, and respect nature's boundaries, turning each hike into a practical lesson in biology and geography. And Nina, little Nina, though still too young to actively participate in the organization, was the project's mascot and inspiration. Her joy and ability to connect with everyone, regardless of age, were a constant reminder of the purity and hope the project sought to cultivate. She accompanied her parents to meetings, distributed hugs and smiles, and her presence was a balm for everyone involved. The first group of young people from the Roots and Wings project left for Chapada Diamantina a year after the Silva family's trip. The excitement was palpable. Marcos and Sophia watched the young people, some apprehensive, others euphoric, embarking on the same journey that had transformed their lives. Luana and Pedro, now more mature and confident, were there to guide them, sharing their own experiences and encouraging them to embrace each challenge. During the 2-week exchange, the young people faced their own setbacks. Challenging trails, unexpected rain, moments of fatigue, and even small misunderstandings. But, like the Silva family, They learned to overcome them together, with each other's help and the support of the team. They returned to Sao Paulo transformed, with new friendships, new skills, and a new worldview. Their photos and drawings were a testament to their journeys, and their stories, filled with adventure and resilience, inspired their communities. The Roots and Wings project became a success, growing each year and impacting the lives of hundreds of young people. The Silva family, united in their purpose, continued to be the heart of the initiative, proving that true adventure isn't just about traveling, but about using the lessons of the journey to build a better world. The trip to Chapada Diamantina had been the beginning of something much greater, a legacy of love, resilience, and hope that would continue to flourish for many generations. And so, the Silva family's story, which began with a simple trip, became an inspiring testament to the unbreakable strength of family bonds and the transformative power of experience. Years passed since the Silva family's memorable trip to Chapada Diamantina, and the Roots and Wings project flourished, becoming a beacon of hope and opportunity for countless young people. The small seed planted by a family's quest to find its roots had grown into a robust tree, whose branches extended across diverse communities, touching lives and inspiring futures. Marcos, now a respected consultant in sustainable and social development, dedicated most of his time to the project. His strategic vision and ability to mobilize resources were crucial in expanding Roots and Wings beyond the Chapada Diamantina, reaching other regions of Brazil with rich cultural and environmental heritage. He became a tireless advocate for experiential education, believing that lessons learned outside the classroom, in contact with nature and different cultures, were the most transformative. The former major construction engineer had found his true calling in building human and social bridges. Sophia, with her eloquent voice and deep knowledge, became a sought-after speaker at conferences on education and cultural diversity. She published books and articles, sharing the pedagogical methodologies developed for Roots and Wings, which emphasized the appreciation of identity, connection with ancestry, and respect for nature. Her passion for storytelling now manifested itself on a much larger stage, inspiring educators and policymakers to rethink the role of culture and experience in the formation of young citizens. The history teacher had become a guardian of memory and an architect of the future. Luana, the artist, had established her name in the contemporary art scene. Her exhibitions, which often featured the photographs and drawings from the Roots and Wings project, were acclaimed by critics and the public. She used her art to give a voice to the young participants, showcasing their perspectives and talents, and to celebrate the beauty and resilience of the communities the project supported. Her camera and pencils were extensions of her soul, tools for building bridges of understanding and empathy. She founded a studio school where young artists could develop their skills and find their own voice, following in the footsteps she herself had walked. Pedro, the explorer, had become a renowned biologist and environmentalist. His research on the biodiversity of Chapada Diamantina and other regions of Brazil contributed significantly to the conservation of threatened ecosystems. He led scientific expeditions, often accompanied by young people from the Roots and Wings project, who saw him as a mentor and role model. His passion for nature, ignited on his childhood trip, had become a lifelong mission, and he dedicated each day to protecting the planet for future generations. He was living proof that childhood curiosity, when nurtured, can transform into an unwavering commitment to the greater good. And Nina, the youngest, grew up to be a young woman full of light and compassion. Inspired by Dona Eunice's generosity and Dona Tsida's wisdom, she dedicated herself to social work, volunteering in shelters and underprivileged communities. Her ability to connect with people, to offer a smile and a word of comfort, was a gift she cherished. She was the embodiment of the love and hope the Silva family had found on their journey, a constant reminder that kindness is the greatest transformative force. She became the informal ambassador for Roots and Wings, using her contagious energy to inspire others to join the cause. The Silva home remained the epicenter of their lives, a place where the stories of the Chapada were told and retold, where new dreams were forged, and where family love was the foundation of everything. Friday nights, now attended by friends and project collaborators, were celebrations of life, culture, and unity. The journey that began as a family adventure had blossomed into a legacy that transcended the family itself, positively impacting society. They learned that life is a succession of journeys, each with its own challenges and rewards. The true measure of a life is not the absence of problems, but how one faces each of them with courage, resilience, and, above all, love. The Silva family, more than ever, was living proof that the bonds of affection and the strength of unity are the greatest treasures one can carry. And so, the echoes of that initial journey continued to resonate, weaving a legacy of love and hope that would span generations. An eternal testament to the unbreakable strength of a united Black family that turned unexpected events into opportunities and a simple journey into an inspiring saga. The Silva story, far from being to end, continued to be written. With each new smile, each new achievement, each new embrace, a legacy of love that would echo forever. Time, relentless in its course, continued to weave new threads in the Silva family's life. Marcos and Sophia's hair grew silver, and their children, now adults, forged their own paths, but the bond that united them, forged on the roads of Bahia, remained unshakable. The Roots and Wings Project had become a national institution, a model of how experiential education and cultural exchange could transform lives and communities. Marcos, retired from his most intense activities, dedicated himself to mentoring young project leaders, sharing his vast management experience and his life wisdom. He and Sophia had built a small house in Chapada Diamantina, near Lancois, a refuge where they spent long periods, reconnecting with nature and with the people who had taught them so much. With each visit to Donut who, despite her advanced age, maintained the sparkle in her eyes and the lucidity of her soul, they relived the memories of that first trip, realizing how fundamental she had been to the construction of everything that came after. Sophia, with her inexhaustible energy, continued to write and travel, documenting the stories of resilience and the cultural richness of Afro-Brazilian communities throughout the country. Her works were required reading in schools and universities, and she was a respected voice in the fight for the appreciation of Black culture. Together, she and Marcos organized annual gatherings at their house in Chapada, bringing together their children, grandchildren, and friends of the project, celebrating their lives and the legacy they had built. Luana, now an internationally renowned artist, used her platform to promote art as a tool for social transformation. Her traveling exhibitions took the stories of Roots and Wings to the world, showcasing the beauty and strength of Brazilian culture. She often returned to Chapada, not only to visit her parents and grandmother, but also to seek inspiration from the landscapes and people who had shaped her artistic vision. Her children, budding artists, were already following in her footsteps, with cameras and sketchbooks in hand. Pedro, the biologist, was a leader in his field, with conservation projects that spanning across Brazilian biomes. He had realized his dream of returning to Bahia, leading a research team in Chapada Diamantina, working tirelessly to protect local biodiversity. His children, who grew up listening to the stories of her first trip, were her hiking companions, learning from an early age a love and respect for nature. He was proof that a child's passion can transform into a lifelong commitment to the planet. And Nina, the youngest, had become a dedicated social worker, working directly with the young people of the Roots and Wings Project in São Paulo. Her empathy and ability to listen and welcome were a balm for those seeking a path. She was the bridge between the big city and the transformative experiences of the Chapada, guiding the young people with the same sweetness and firmness that had characterized her since childhood. Her laughter, now more mature, continued to be the melody of the house, a constant reminder of the joy that family unity could bring. Each year, the Silva family gathered in Chapada Diamantina to celebrate the anniversary of that first trip. It was a time of gratitude, reflection, and renewal of vows of love and unity. They would sit on the porch of Donut house, watching the sunset over the mountains, and Marcos, with a smile on his face, would say, "Life is a journey, and ours was the most beautiful of all because we made it together." Sophia, holding his hand, added, "And we will continue to do so, with each new day, each new challenge, each new embrace." The unexpected events of that first trip, which once seemed like insurmountable obstacles, had become pillars of a rich and inspiring story. The Silva family, with its roots firmly planted in its ancestry and its wings open to the future, was a living testament to the fact that love, resilience, and unity are the true compasses for navigating life. And so, the saga of the Silvas, a Black family who dared to dream and who, together, transformed each challenge into a celebration of life, would continue to echo through generations, an eternal legacy of love and hope.